If you want to become a better player and make a lot less mistakes, you have come to the right place. Today, I'm going to be going over 15 of the most common mistakes in Fortnite and how to fix them. This video is going to mainly be focused on mistakes you make while fighting and building, but I will also go over some mistakes you make in your settings, so look out for those as well. This first mistake is to do with using double edits on your opponents. I see so many players getting eliminated simply because they try to make a double edit on their opponent like this, but before they can even pull their shotgun out, their opponent has already hit them. But luckily there is a very simple way to fix this mistake. After making the double edit, quickly place a wall in front of you and this will block your opponent's shot. You can then make a window edit on your wall like this, jump up and get a protected peek on your opponent. If you don't eliminate your opponent on the first shot, simply reset and edit your wall open like this, before resetting your floor and editing this tile instead. You can then get another protected peek. This next mistake is what you do when you get hit hard by an opponent. After an opponent gets a large health advantage on you, they will start playing very aggressively and will just be constantly pressuring. If you try and heal while they do this, chances are at least a few shots are going to go through your builds and you will be eliminated. So instead, use this trick. Start tunneling away from your opponents like this and make sure to place a ramp behind you like this. Then, finally make a full box and turn to your opponent's direction and hold an edit on your ramp like this. When your opponent comes through the tunnel blindly pickaxing your builds, simply confirm the edit and you'll now have a free shot on your opponents and they will be fully boxed. Now I'm going to blast through some mistakes when it comes to settings that a lot of people use and as a result add input delay and decrease their FPS. All of these settings apply to PC players, and a lot of them will still apply to you if you're on console, so keep watching. First off, if you're on PC, make sure you're playing on performance mode with every setting set to low for the best performance. I personally don't use low meshes, or in other words mobile builds, all the time, but this is only because it makes my videos look worse, so the majority of you should keep this setting on low. Next up, on your game settings, make sure to turn all these replay settings and energy saving settings off, as they all add a lot of input delay to your game. Finally, go to your audio settings and set the sound quality to low, and go into your subtitle settings and set them to what I have here. When it comes to triple edits, I've seen players making a lot of mistakes. The first is to do with when to actually use a triple edit. Lots of players use a triple edit to push their opponent like this, but similar to the double edit mistake I showed you earlier, this leaves you completely exposed and your opponent can fire at you easily. Instead, you have two options. The first is to simply edit a window in the wall like this instead and get a shot off. The second option is less predictable. Start by editing the floor as you usually would, but then place the wall through the cone and side jump to the left. You can then get some piece control on your opponent from here and finish up the fight. The second common mistake when it comes to triple edits is about how to actually do the triple edit itself. Lots of people make the mistake of editing two tiles on the floor and the cone, but this is not as good as it leaves you completely open from above and behind. Instead, edit both tiles of the floor so that you don't hit your head and get stuck, and then edit only one tile on the cone to stay protected. This next mistake is all about editing and making protected peaks. Before you make any edit on an opponent, you should always make sure that you will be completely hidden. To do this, a lot of players simply look at the greyed out tiles, but this is a big mistake as it doesn't properly show you where you will be hidden, and you can be left completely exposed. Instead, you need to be looking at this flashing line, as this is a preview of what your build will be like after confirming the edit, and tells you exactly exactly where you need to be standing to be hidden and protected. This next mistake is also very common, and it happens when you're playing aggressively. The mistake is simply pickaxing an opponent's wall more than once. Let me explain. When you do this, your opponent can simply make a wide open edit, you will get stuck in the pickaxing animation, and they will eliminate you. Instead, you have two options for attacking and taking your opponent's wall. The first is this. Simply get a bit above your opponent and then drop down onto their wall and pickaxe it once while falling to make it weak, before pickaxing again and taking the wall. You can also do something similar but with a spray weapon if your opponent is boxed up in a stronger material. The next solution can be easier as you don't have to start from above. First, simply approach your opponent's wall, place a cone and pickaxe the top of your opponent's wall. Then edit your cone into a ramp, and if done correctly, you should be able to pickaxe the weak point on the wall through your cone like this. This is a great option as you can pickaxe the wall as many times as you like while being protected. Mistake number 8 is similar to the last mistake I showed you, but it is a bit different. The mistake is trying to simply take your opponent's cone and floor from above like this. Because of how long it takes to fully break 2 builds, your opponent will always realise, make an edit and get a free shot on you. Instead, you need to pickaxe the floor before the cone. Let me explain. If you pickaxe right at this point between your opponent's cone and wall, you can actually take their floor, and this is very effective as your opponent simply won't expect it and will be confused. It's also much safer as you can then take the cone easily without having to worry about getting edited on. Sadly, using the Mongrel Classic is now a mistake in Fortnite. Because of how popular it has become and how long it's been around, it is now very predictable and your opponents will pre-fire you when you use it most of the time. But luckily, there are a few alternatives. This first one is simply doing the Mongrel Classic but through a window edit so that you can stay protected while doing it. This other method makes use of this ramp edit which will confuse your opponent, and you can then run to the back of the ramp, reset it, and you will be in your opponent's face ready to take a free shot. Another very common mistake is over piece controlling. As you may know, piece control is when you place and control all the build pieces around your opponent, and a lot of players think that when it comes to piece control, the more builds the better. But this is not correct. Look at this example. Right here, I place a cone below and above my opponent with a wall in front of me, but I continue to place 2 walls around my opponent, and this gives them the chance to shoot me. Instead, I should have simply taken a shot on my opponent after placing both of the cones, or reset my wall, made a different edit to place the other 2 walls. If you stop making the mistake of over piece controlling, it will make you a much more advanced player. This next mistake is all to do with resetting your wall after making an edit on an opponent. Lots of people, after making an edit and shooting, simply try to move their crosshair to the wall until they have the option to reset their wall. But this is not very efficient and can waste time in which your opponent has a chance at shooting you. Instead, after taking a shot on your opponent, pull out your builds and click your wall bind, and you will instantly have the option to reset your wall without having to move your crosshair at all. It may not seem it, but this small change can save you a lot of time, and it may be the difference between your opponent hitting you and hitting the wall. The biggest mistake I'm going to cover is this one, and that's not subscribing to me. No, I'm only joking. This doesn't count as one of the 15 mistakes, but I do make other tips and tricks videos like this one, so if you've made it this far in the video, you'll probably enjoy my other videos and should consider subscribing. Now, on to the next mistake. Mistake number 12 is using the simple side jump. It's outdated, pointless, and most importantly, doesn't protect you from your opponents. Instead, you need to learn this advanced side jump. Start by keeping to the left of your ramp like this, and then edit your floor like this. Start strafing to the right and place a wall through your cone like this. This is a very key step as this wall will be what keeps you protected. Now for the important part. When you side jump, place a floor and a ramp below you like this, and this will boost you up one whole layer if done correctly. Then simply carry on your momentum up the ramp into some 90s, and you have effectively taken high ground. This mistake I'm about to tell you about now has been known for a while, but I still see people making it, so I'll go over the solution for it. The mistake is all about how you flip your ramp. Lots of people think the quickest way is to edit from one middle tile to the other middle tile. But in fact, there's a much quicker way that requires a lot less movement with your crosshair. Simply edit from one of the middle tiles to this tile on the right of the ramp, or this tile on the left of the ramp. This is a lot quicker, and it's one of those small changes that you make to your gameplay that can get you one step closer to being quicker than your opponents. Dropping your opponent into your box like this is also a big mistake and not the best way to fight your opponents from below. Your opponent can predict this very easily, and it will just lead to a 50-50 against your opponent in the box. Instead, try this strategy. First, edit your floor and place 3 walls through it like this to box your opponent. Next, reset the floor and edit the cone in your box into a ramp, edit the back 2 tiles of your floor, and finally edit the cone above you into a ramp. You will now have created a martel's peak and can safely eliminate your opponent. This final mistake is also very common and has been around for a while, but I still see people making it, so I'm going to go over it and explain it. Basically, the mistake is pulling out your pickaxe like this while you are building and editing. Lots of players do this because it does look very flashy and makes it look like you are editing quicker, but it's very inefficient. Also, while you have your pickaxe out, you can edit builds from only 5 meters away, whereas when you have your builds out, you can edit builds from up to 7 meters away. This is a pretty big difference, and it just means that you can edit your builds quicker and have more time. So, whenever you're building and editing, just make sure to hold your builds out. If you stop making all of those mistakes and start using the solutions I showed you, I can promise that you will see some serious improvement. If you enjoyed this video, you'll be sure to enjoy this other tips and tricks video, so go watch it.